She drives a Mercedes. She wears a Rolex. She carries Louis Vuitton. And yet, El Chapo's oldest daughter, now turning 50, might be the saddest member of his entire family. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman has at least 16 children. Most of the world only knows a handful of them, the ones who run the Sinaloa cartel, the ones splashed across headlines for arrests, extraditions, and shootouts. But his eldest, almost nobody's heard of her. And that's exactly the point. I assure you, the real story here isn't about cartel violence or courtroom drama. It's about something quieter, and honestly, a lot more disturbing. It's about a woman who claims to be the firstborn daughter of one of the most powerful criminals alive, and who has spent 50 years trying to prove she even exists to her own family. But amidst 16 children, multiple wives, decades of secrecy, and a family empire built on blood and fear, this woman did something almost nobody else in El Chapo's orbit has done. She went public. With letters, with interviews, with her face uncovered, asking for one thing only: to be acknowledged. And that one decision changed her life forever. Just maybe not in the way she hoped. But before we get into how she's living now, in 2026, at 50 years old, I need you to first understand who El Chapo was before he became El Chapo, and how a woman named Rosa Isela Guzman Ortiz entered the picture decades before anyone knew the name Sinaloa Cartel. 1957, Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Loera is born in La Tuna, a tiny village in the Badiraguato municipality of Sinaloa, Mexico. He's the son of a cattle rancher, and by most accounts grows up poor, in a region where opium poppy cultivation isn't the exception, it's the economy. Why did El Chapo enter the trafficking business in the first place, you ask? Well, understand that we need to first look at where he grew up, Badiraguato, in the heart of what's often called Mexico's Golden Triangle, a mountainous region spanning Sinaloa, Durango, and Chihuahua, where opium poppy and marijuana cultivation had been the primary economic activity for generations, long before El Chapo was even born. Now, while all this was going on, Guzman was still just a teenager learning that very same trade, and in Badiraguato in the 1960s and 70s, that's simply what survival always looked like. Mid-1970s, this is where it gets interesting. According to a Guardian investigation by journalist Jose Luis Montenegro, a young Joaquin Guzman, not yet El Chapo, not yet famous, not yet feared, allegedly had a relationship with a school teacher named Mara Luisa Ortiz. 1976, a daughter is born. Her name is Rosa Isela Guzman Ortiz. Now listen closely, cuz what I'm going to say next brings everything together. At the time Rosa Isela was born, El Chapo was just 19 years old. He wasn't yet the man who'd build a multi-billion-dollar trafficking empire. He wasn't yet married to Alejandrina Mara Salazar Hernandez, which would happen the following year, in 1977. He wasn't yet the head of anything. He was just a teenager from a poor village, and if Rosa Isela's claims are true, he was already a father. But here's where things get interesting. Rosa Isela wouldn't become part of the public conversation around the Guzman family for 40 years. While El Chapo went on to marry at least 3 more times, Estela Pei, Griselda Ilpez Prez in the mid-1980s, and finally, Emma Coronel Ispuro in 2007. And while he fathered at least 15 children that the world does know about, Rosa Isela stayed almost completely invisible. This reality, along with El Chapo's eventual rise to becoming the most wanted man in the world, set the stage for what would become one of the strangest family disputes in modern criminal history. Now, while El Chapo was busy becoming a billionaire, building tunnels under prison walls, and escaping maximum security facilities not once but twice, Rosa Isela was, by her own account, growing up on the outside of all of it. Not poor, not unaware, but not acknowledged either. Based on specific records and reporting from this era, El Chapo's first escape came in 2001, when he reportedly walked out of Puente Grande prison hidden in a laundry cart, an event that instantly made him a folk legend across parts of Mexico. His second escape, in 2015, was even more dramatic, a mile-long tunnel dug directly beneath his cell at the Altiplano Federal Prison, complete with ventilation and lighting, ending at a half-built house outside the facility's perimeter. Both escapes dominated international headlines for weeks. Both turned El Chapo into a household name far beyond Mexico's borders. And during both of those moments, when the entire world was talking about her father, Rosa Isela, by her own account, was simply living her life. Not commenting. Not appearing in coverage. Not named in a single major outlet covering either escape. If she truly was his eldest child during the two biggest moments of his criminal career, she was, for all practical purposes, invisible during both of them. And that single fact, being the oldest child of one of the richest criminals alive, while simultaneously being treated as if she didn't exist, even during the moments that made him a global icon, is the foundation of everything that happens next. This is the year everything changes. Jose Luis Montenegro, the same journalist who'd later detail her story for The Guardian, publishes a piece introducing the world to Rosa Isela Guzmán Ortiz, describing her as the unknown eldest daughter of Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán. We know El Chapo's family life was complicated. Multiple wives, multiple kids, multiple households. But this was different. This wasn't a son running cartel operations or a wife facing federal charges. This was a woman claiming, for the first time publicly, that she was the first child El Chapo ever had, and that she'd spent her entire life with almost no one outside her immediate circle believing her. May 5th, 2017, here's the moment that put her face on the record. Outside the federal courthouse in Brooklyn, New York, where El Chapo was about to stand trial on drug trafficking, money laundering, and firearms charges that could put him away for life, Rosa Isela Guzmán Ortiz showed up. Standing beside attorney Jose Luis González Meza at a press conference, she was identified, on record, as the eldest of Joaquín El Chapo Guzmán's 16 children. But here's the part that might actually interest you. When Montenegro first profiled her, he described someone living a life of visible success. According to his reporting, Rosa Isela ran what he called a small chain of car washes, beauty salons, and cafes, and he said her businesses were doing very well, judging by, in his words, the Rolex on her wrist, the Louis Vuitton bag at her feet, and the Mercedes-Benz parked outside. So picture that for a second. A woman quietly running a small business empire across the US and Mexico, successful enough for designer accessories and a luxury car, and almost nobody outside her circle even knew she existed, let alone that she claimed to be the daughter of the most wanted man on earth. But ironically, and this is where the story takes its first real gut punch, when she actually showed up to support her father, in person, at his Brooklyn court date, no Rolex, no Louis Vuitton, no Mercedes in sight. The Daily Beast described her that day wearing pants that were too long, dragging through puddles on the courthouse sidewalk. You see this contrast, the woman with the watch and the handbag versus the woman in soaked, ill-fitting clothes outside a federal courthouse, isn't just a wardrobe story. It's the entire emotional core of who Rosa Isela appears to be, someone caught between two completely different lives, belonging fully to neither. Why did Rosa Isela go public at all, you ask? Well, it all boils down to one thing: recognition. According to her interviews with the Daily Beast, Rosa Isela claims to possess more than 15 letters exchanged between her and El Chapo over the years. Letters in which, she says, he refers to her directly as his daughter, That's more than just a courtesy, she told the Daily Beast, pushing back against Emma Coronel's explanation that any contact from El Chapo toward Rosa Isela had simply been a courtesy gesture, not an acknowledgement of paternity. Montenegro, the journalist who broke the original story, backed her up here. He told the Daily Beast that he had personally reviewed the letters, that they were signed by El Chapo, and that he believed them to be authentic. The Guardian, for its part, stood by its original reporting. But did any of that settle the dispute? Well, no. Instead, it only made things messier. Here's something no one actually talks about. When this story broke, it didn't just create a news cycle. It created a direct conflict between Rosa Isela and the recognized Guzman family. Emma Coronel, El Chapo's wife, the woman who married him in 2007 at just 18 years old when he was 50, said she'd never heard of Rosa Isela. According to reporting, Coronel said she'd even consulted with two of El Chapo's sisters, and they'd never heard of her either. If you take the time and do your homework on the Guzman family, you'll find that this kind of denial isn't unusual. El Chapo is documented as having children with multiple different women, some of whom never crossed paths with each other. The Daily Beast even raised the possibility that some of his children, what they called narco juniors, might be completely unknown to the rest of the family. So in theory, Rosa Isela's situation wasn't even that unusual. But Rosa Isela wasn't just claiming to be a daughter. She was claiming to be the oldest, the firstborn, among at least 16 children. And that's a much bigger claim to be denied on. So what did she do next? She offered to take a DNA test, publicly, to settle it once and for all. As of the reporting available, there's no indication that test ever happened, or that it resolved anything. Now here's where it gets genuinely heartbreaking, if you actually sit with it. Despite being denied by Emma Coronel and El Chapo's sisters, despite never being officially recognized, Rosa Isela has continued to describe herself not just as a sibling, but as a kind of guardian figure for the rest of the family. In her own words to the Daily Beast, "We are all half-siblings. But in any case, we are siblings. The 16 of us. I'm the oldest. They are my little brothers and sisters, and I have to look out for them." Think about that. A woman who isn't even acknowledged by her father's wife, who's been told point blank that nobody in the family had heard of her, and her response isn't anger or revenge. It's responsibility. She's positioning herself as the protector of siblings, who by every official account don't even know she's related to them. She also claimed, according to reporting, to be close with El Chapo's mother, Consuelo Loera, and said she helped support her financially. That detail matters a lot more than it might seem, because of what happened next in the broader family timeline. Consuelo Loera, El Chapo's mother, lived a quiet life for most of her 90-plus years, but she became a brief national talking point in 2020, when then-President Andrés Manuel López Obrador shook her hand during a visit to Badiraguato, defending the gesture as simple courtesy toward what he called a respectable old lady. In a letter she wrote in March 2020, Loera said she was 92 years old, and she used that letter to push for her son to be returned to Mexico to serve his sentence, a request that obviously went nowhere. Loera passed away in her mid-90s, and her death was confirmed by multiple Mexican outlets, with reports describing her final weeks in a private clinic. Now here's the question this raises. If Rosa Isela truly was close to Consuelo Loera, and truly did help support her financially, as she claimed, was she there, in any capacity, when Loera died? Was she part of that family moment at all? Based on available reporting, there's no indication she was acknowledged in that process either. To put that into context, this is a 50-year-old woman who says she helped financially support her own grandmother. who claims to have a paper trail of letters proving her father called her daughter, and who still, by most accounts, remains on the outside of the family she says she belongs to. If you do the math, I'm sure you can tell. Rosa Isela was already 19 years old by the time her father married Emma Coronel in 2007. She was already an adult, already building whatever life she'd go on to build, while El Chapo was starting an entirely new chapter with an 18-year-old bride and, eventually, twin daughters. Think about the timeline here. By the time Rosa Isela was old enough to have her own children, El Chapo was fathering more kids with other women, kids who would grow up inside the family structure, with the Guzum name attached to them from birth, with access to resources, protection, and at least some version of a relationship with their father. Rosa Isela, by contrast, was reportedly raised primarily by her mother, Mara Luisa Ortiz, the school teacher. Not the cartel, not the compound, not the armed guards or the safe houses that other Guzum children grew up around. A teacher's household, in a region where the Guzum name carried enormous weight, but where her branch of that name carried almost none. So while the rest of the world eventually came to know El Chapo as the most wanted man in the world, a title that came with its own twisted kind of fame for his recognized children, Rosa Isela grew up watching that fame from a distance, as someone with every reason to claim a piece of it, and apparently no path to actually do so. Significantly different compared to Rosa Isela's situation is how El Chapo's recognized children have lived. And this comparison is honestly where the sadness of her story gets put into full perspective. Take Alejandrina Giselle Guzum Salazar, one of El Chapo's officially acknowledged daughters, born in 1981, just 5 years after Rosa Isela. Unlike Rosa Isela, Alejandrina grew up inside the family structure. She went to school. She studied medicine. For most of her life, she stayed largely out of the spotlight until she made headlines of her own, including an arrest at the San Diego border crossing in 2014 for allegedly trying to enter the U.S. on someone else's passport, at which point she told authorities her father was Joaquin El Chapo Guzum. So even El Chapo's acknowledged children have had complicated, sometimes criminal entanglements with his legacy, but they at least have the legacy to begin with. Rosa Isela doesn't even get that. And then there's the next generation entirely. Frida Guzum Muoz, one of El Chapo's granddaughters, the daughter of his eldest acknowledged son, Degar Guzum Elpez, who was murdered by a rival cartel in 2008. Frida, born in 2005, has no links to crime herself, and at just 18 years old, she's been living a life of luxury travel, visiting Buckingham Palace, taking a boat ride on Loch Ness, going on a whiskey tasting in Edinburgh, and posing at the Palace of Versailles, the Louvre, and the Eiffel Tower, all while pursuing a music and influencer career to over 110,000 Instagram followers. Let that sink in. A teenage granddaughter of El Chapo, 2 generations removed, with no criminal involvement of her own, is living a globe-trotting influencer lifestyle, fully embraced by the family name. Meanwhile, the woman who claims to be El Chapo's actual firstborn child, now turning 50, is still fighting just to be acknowledged as part of the family at all. But here's the part that might actually interest you most. In recent years, Rosa Isela has built what's been described as a business empire under the name R.Guzum, selling merchandise tied directly to her father's legacy. Clothing, beauty products, and more, all branded around the Guzum name. Why did she build a brand around her father's name, you ask? Well, understand that we need to first go back to everything we just covered. She's spent decades trying to get this family and the world to recognize her connection to El Chapo. And in a strange, almost tragic way, building a commercial brand off that name is its own form of recognition seeking. even if the family that denies her existence has nothing to do with it, and arguably can't stop her from doing it. It's recognition by proxy. If the people won't claim her, maybe the name still can, at least commercially. To put that into another perspective, there's an entire global market of people fascinated by the Guzm name. T-shirts, hats, documentaries, true crime podcasts, YouTube channels just like the one telling you this story right now. El Chapo's name generates attention and money, whether the family wants it to or not. So in a sense, Rosa Isela isn't doing anything fundamentally different from what dozens of unrelated content creators and merchandisers already do every single day, except she's doing it as the person claiming to be his daughter, which gives the whole thing a strange double meaning. Is it a tribute, a business strategy, a quiet protest against being erased? Based on her public statements, it might honestly be all three at once. 2024. Amid escalating violence in Culiacan, the capital of Sinaloa, following the capture of Ismael El Mayo Zambada, co-founder of the Sinaloa cartel, Rosa Isela did something almost nobody in her position would do. She made a public plea on social media directed at her half-brothers, the so-called Los Chapitos faction, led by Ivan, Alfredo, Joaquin, and Ovidio Guzm, urging them to stop their dangerous infighting within the cartel. We know cartel violence in Sinaloa has been ongoing for years, but this was different in its framing. This wasn't a cartel insider or a government official speaking out. This was a woman whose own paternity claim had been publicly denied by the family, stepping forward to call out misinformation and beg for an end to violence threatening innocent civilians in the city, where she says her family is from. Her message went viral on platforms like X and TikTok, and then it was deleted. To put into context just how complicated her position is, she's pleading with men who, according to the family's official position, aren't even her brothers. She's risking public exposure and possibly cartel attention for siblings who reportedly don't know she exists. And then the message just disappears. Now here's where the broader family story takes another dramatic turn, and it's worth understanding because it shows just how unstable and how transactional the Guzm family's situation has become. In 2025, Griselda Elpez Prez, one of El Chapo's ex-wives, along with 16 other relatives, crossed the U.S. southern border at the Tijuana/San Diego crossing as part of what reports described as a secret plea deal with U.S. federal authorities, reportedly connected to the case against El Chapo's youngest son, Ovidio Guzm Lopez, who'd been extradited to the U.S. in September 2023 after a massive raid that left 29 people dead. According to reporting, the family arrived carrying $70,000 in cash, and Mexico's Security Secretary, Omar Garca Harfuch, confirmed the move was tied to negotiations with the Department of Justice. 17 relatives. A secret deal with federal prosecutors. Suitcases of cash. A negotiated path into the United States. Rosa Isela was not one of them. If she truly is El Chapo's eldest child, and if the family's official structure is fluid enough to negotiate safe passage for 17 people in a plea deal, the fact that she remains entirely outside that structure tells you everything about where she actually stands, even now, even at 50. According to the available reporting, pieced together from The Guardian's original investigation, the Daily Beast's follow-up, court records from Brooklyn, and ongoing coverage of the broader Guzm family, Rosa Isela Guzm Ortiz, now turning 50, remains in roughly the same position she's occupied for the better part of a decade, publicly claiming to be El Chapo's eldest daughter, privately still fighting for any form of acknowledgement from the family that bears her father's name. Few developments have suggested any resolution. Some reporting mentions her continued business activity under the Guzum brand, suggesting she's found a way to monetize the connection regardless of whether the family accepts it. Others highlight her continued, occasional public statements, like the 2024 plea to her half-brothers, showing she hasn't given up trying to insert herself into the family's story, even from the outside. But even if her businesses are genuinely successful, even if the Rolex and the Louis Vuitton and the Mercedes are real, it had one undeniable, measurable impact on her life. At 50 years old, she is still introducing herself to the world as the daughter nobody will claim. The only question left to answer right now is, at 50, with El Chapo serving life plus 30 years at the ADEX Florence Supermax in Colorado, a place from which he will never walk free again, does it even matter anymore whether the family acknowledges her? You'd think, logically, that the answer would be no. He's never coming home. There's no inheritance to fight over in any traditional sense. Most of what's left of the Guzum Empire is either seized, sanctioned, or being fought over by half-brothers locked in their own violent power struggle. Recognition from this family doesn't unlock wealth, doesn't unlock safety, doesn't unlock anything tangible. And yet, by every account we have, Rosa Isela keeps trying. Other people in similar situations, and there are likely more unknown Guzum children out there, as even the Daily Beast acknowledged, have largely chosen to stay hidden. Silence is safer. Anonymity is safer. But Rosa Isela chose the opposite path. Letters, interviews, press conferences, na-test offers, public pleas to cartel-affiliated half-brothers. It's worth pausing here to ask what Rosa Isela is actually fighting for. Because it's not money, and it's not protection. At least not in any obvious sense. Based on her own statements, what she seems to want is something far simpler, and in some ways far harder to get. To be allowed to call her half-siblings brothers and sisters without that claim being publicly contradicted by the people closest to them. To have the letters, she says, prove her father called her daughter means something to the family, not just to journalists. To not have to keep explaining, at 50 years old, why she's standing outside a courthouse, or posting a video to siblings who don't know she exists, or building a clothing brand around a surname that legally and socially still isn't fully hers. Statistics show that public figures who spend decades pursuing recognition from estranged or denying family members, particularly in cases involving inheritance, paternity, or family identity, rarely receive a clean resolution. Most such cases either fade from public attention without a conclusion, get quietly settled through private legal arrangements never disclosed publicly, or simply continue indefinitely, with both sides repeating their original positions for years. Rosa Isela's situation, based on the available record, currently fits the third category. The conditions that created Rosa Isela's situation are deeply specific to the Guzum family's unique structure, and that's part of why her story doesn't really have a template to follow. First, El Chapo has at least 4 documented marriages and at least 16 children across those relationships and others, meaning the family itself has no single, unified official record to check her claim against. Second, the family's own positions have shifted depending on who's speaking. Emma Coronel denies knowing her. El Chapo's sisters reportedly hadn't heard of her, but El Chapo himself, if the letters are real, apparently called her daughter directly, in writing, for years. Third, the Guzum family's structure is currently in active chaos, with Los Chapitos in open conflict, with Ovidio in U.S. custody, with 17 relatives crossing the border under a federal plea deal, and with El Chapo's mother now deceased. There's no stable family left for Rosa Isela to be formally accepted into, even if everyone suddenly agreed she belonged. If anyone else tried to replicate Rosa Isela's approach, going public, demanding recognition from a cartel family in active internal conflict, they're more likely to end up in danger than in acceptance. Her relative safety, if you can call it that, may come from operating in legitimate businesses across 2 countries, maintaining a public profile that makes her disappearance more noticeable, and, frankly, from simply not being seen as a threat to anyone's power or money. And here's something no one actually talks about. While El Chapo's empire was built on fear and billions of dollars, the human cost of that empire isn't just measured in violence or prison sentences. It's also measured in things like this: a woman turning 50, by most accounts financially comfortable, even successful, who has spent her entire adult life trying to prove she belongs to a family that has spent that same time insisting she doesn't. In fact, the contradictions never resolved. The letters were never publicly verified beyond one journalist's review. The DNA test never happened as far as we know. The family never issued any kind of acknowledgement, and the half-brothers she begged for peace never responded, at least not publicly. So is Rosa Isela Guzman Ortiz really El Chapo's oldest daughter? Based on everything we've covered, the letters, the court appearance, the journalist's verification, her own consistent claims over nearly a decade, there's a real case that she is. But whether she is or isn't almost doesn't matter anymore. Because either way, at 50 years old, she's living proof that even being connected by blood, by letters, by a name, to one of the most powerful men in the world doesn't guarantee you a place in his family. Compare that, one more time, to the rest of the family's trajectory in just the last couple of years. Frida Guzman Muoz, 18, touring European capitals and building an Instagram following past 110,000. 17 relatives, including an ex-wife, crossing the U.S. border as part of a negotiated federal deal, reportedly with $70,000 in cash. Los Chapitos, locked in a violent internal war for control of what's left of the cartel. An entire extended family, still very much active, still very much visible, still very much operating as a unit, even a fractured, dangerous one. And then there's Rosa Isela, not part of the plea deal, not part of the cartel conflict, not part of the European vacations, just a 50-year-old businesswoman with a Rolex, a Mercedes, and a brand bearing her father's name, standing, as she has for nearly a decade now, just outside the frame of every photo. El Chapo's gone for good, locked away for the rest of his life in a cell roughly the size of a small bathroom, allowed out for 1 hour a day, with no realistic chance of ever seeing any of his children again in person. But we don't think Rosa Isela's story is done being written. Whether she ever gets the recognition she's spent decades seeking, or whether she spends the next chapter of her life exactly where she spent the last 50 years, on the outside, looking in, that's still an open question. And honestly, that might be the saddest part of this entire story. Not the cartel violence, not the prison sentences, not even the billions of dollars, most of which are gone or seized anyway. Just one woman, turning 50, still waiting for a family that has never once, on the record, said her name back. If there's one final thought worth leaving you with, it's this. Somewhere in Mexico or the United States right now, a 50-year-old woman is running her businesses, wearing her watch, driving her car, posting under a brand that carries her father's name. From the outside, by almost every visible measure, her life looks fine, successful even. But based on everything she's said publicly for nearly a decade, what she actually wants has nothing to do with any of that. And as far as the record shows, she still doesn't have it.